We are live and recording and we're unmuted. Great, thank you. Welcome. Dean Colley.
Guys.
Glad you guys are here. Hopefully not too many of you got the short chair. Don't like this.
Definitely got.
Definitely. It's a little taller, but
I can swing it around.
I said I did that on purpose.
yeah.
I really, for meetings.
They made me sit in this chair. The time is 5:05. We're gonna start this meeting. This is a joint meeting with the town and county to talk about emergency insurance services. We appreciate you guys coming on over. We've got some lovely audience members that can hopefully add some context and analysis for us. And Commissioner Scott, thanks for being online with us. Let us know if you can't hear us or if you need anything else from the online perspective.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't be there. You'll be glad that I'm not there with what I've had this past week. So I just decided to stay home and not share it with everybody.
Thanks for keeping us all safe. We hope you feel better. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to our lovely administrators to kick us off and let's do the discussion.
Well, it's my party. So talking through our emergency services, I did put a memo in there on kind of how it relates back to our IGA. You know, in the past, we've had confusion about, oh, do we pay into the fireman's pension? Yes, we do. It is through our IGA, not a separate line item. And some other points in there, but I think it would be beneficial to have Willie talk through our funds first, and then we can kind of dive into the details if you guys all want to do that. Does that work for you, Willie, or
Do that.
what's that? Oh, if you wanted to talk through the funds with them, your memo on the funds.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, I actually had put this memo together last year during budget time. I made a couple of slight changes on it just to update it a little bit, but it's basically from last year's budget. Just to kind of give you a, you know, especially for some of the newer members, an idea of how some of these funds work and, you know, how we work together and so kind of laid out, just, you know, for informational more than anything. So, you know, starting off with the Ambulance Association, the town makes a contribution of about 43,000 every year, and pretty much the rest of the fund is through the county sales tax, the emergency service sales tax. And then additionally, the Ambulance Association can receive funding from the services they provide, grants, donations, whatever. So in addition to what we provide to them, they generate their own revenues as well. And I'm sure Tyler can speak to that a whole lot better than I can.
Yeah, but rough estimate is that the sales tax and the town's and county contribution funds about anywhere between 85 and 90% of our operations. Pre-hospital medicine is it's not easy to collect. Insurance companies are allowed to pay whatever they choose to pay. A lot of the time, Medicare is worse. So, and a lot of times people don't pay. So, a huge percentage is taken care of through the sales tax in the town and county.
So, you know, fire authority, similar situation.
Excuse me, a couple of questions for you. I add up the numbers that the town pays for the ambulance service, doesn't add up with the numbers I got from the town. And my next question is, the town pays 25% of the public works garage and the county 25%, and over here it says we split it 50-50.
So it depends on how you're defining the building. So for the emergency service side, the carriage house, the ambulance side, we pay 50-50. If it's something that involves the whole building, that includes the public works side, then you pay 75% of it. We pay 25% of it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, and then so your first question was as far as numbers?
The county numbers and the town numbers don't add up for the ambulance station, like $5,000, at least what I see.
Okay, so what
I just wonder which one we go by.
So for which,
Oh, you know, I think that what's happening is that this number wasn't updated from our 2024 budget. So I think you're looking at two different budgeting. Is that correct?
It says 2024. What was the county providing, 2023?
right,
I'm thinking.
I think it's, so Gloria's memo says that we split an amount of 86,400, 50-50.
And that was for 2024.
That was for 2024. And then Willie's memo, your memo has 43,200. So I think it would be 43,200. Is that the number you're looking
I'm
at?
looking at year behind on the county budget or
Okay.
town supervisor.
Yeah.
You see all the numbers will be off.
And I have one question on how we came to the 86,000. I mean, obviously a big chunk is paid by the emergency services sales tax. But how did we get to this 86,000 number to split?
Because that was the operating cost for the ambulance association.
Historically?
We split it 50-50, and then when we got the sales tax passed, we maintained that level, and the county came up with the rest with the sales tax
Right.
so instead of the town picking up 50% of the entire budget, they maintained the level that they were
Right,
at. And
right,
we-
because the tax is collected at the county level. So, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. But the 86,000 came from the amount that the town and county used to share
Yeah,
before the budget was supplemented.
I actually have a question about that. Was that prior to the sales tax that the original sales tax that was, so that's the original number from like
yeah.
pre-2007 or whenever the.
That was
Okay.
that was the annual amount that the ambulance got back. I mean, plus.
Yeah. Great, thanks. Ron, did that clear up your question?
Well, one's a previous year budget and then one's
Yeah.
this year's. That's all the numbers are going to be skewed.
Well, great, thanks, Will.
So, then going to the, fire authority, the fire authority, used to be actually under the town. And, it was actually a department of the town. And then they were, county covered them for some period of time. And anyway, eventually what happened was the fire authority, through, an IGA and a service agreement, became their own entity. They're actually a mini government entity. And, so we, again, the way, we get, or the way we fund, the fire authority is real similar, except for with the ambulance, your money comes to us and then it goes to the ambulance. Or, with the fire authority, your money goes, you make a payment to the fire authority. And then the county makes a payment to the fire authority, and then everything above that $30,000 that was, we pick up that cost. Then there are funds, pension funds and escrow funds that the town pays to the county, and then we take care of those costs. We pay for the pension, and we put the money in the escrow account. And then what we had set up was, and we're actually going to discuss this, and we've got a work session to discuss it. We had set up an emergency service other fund, basically, where the emergency service groups would meet and prioritize. We would set a budget number of $120,000 or whatever that amount was. The emergency service groups would meet and prioritize what each department might need. If somebody needed, I think the last thing, the fire authority needed bunk, so we pulled that out of that. There's probably gonna be some other needs that substantial needs that they're gonna have here shortly. The ambulance association is looking at much bigger needs. They're looking for a new facility. And so most of the, hopefully the money that we collect up from the sales tax, we can use that to leverage with grant funding to help make that, to achieve that.
So a question I had there with the emergency services sales tax, and we can talk more about the fund balance there, is how that prioritization and decision-making process happens. So it sounds like the emergency service providers are engaged in that, but like, is there a role for the town to help have a conversation around those priorities? Like it's collected at the county level, but it is a sales tax for the benefit of all of the, people in Silverton. So just a question on how that prioritization happens, how that disbursement and allocation happens, and who's helping make that decision-making process.
It's a county sales tax, just like you have a town sales tax. The only difference is that it is earmarked to be used for emergency services and public safety, but ultimately it's up to the commissioners to decide how it's spent.
Gotcha. So there's not really a role for the town in having that conversation around the public safety and,
That would be up to the commissioners if they wanted to include you in that, and obviously they could. But because it is their sales tax and they are responsible for it, they're ultimately, they're the ones that are making that decision.
gotcha. Yeah, thanks.
How much money is in that fund?
Right now,
Yes.
that's probably about 1.7 million.
Thank you.
We can come to that one later. Yeah, I think you had more there on the fire.
Yeah, just to touch on that a little bit, it basically brings in, the fund brings in a little over $1 million a year on sales tax. And we're spending, this year we're probably gonna spend about 900,000. So it's been over several years that we've been able to build up that fund. And again, that's part of what's gonna be part of that discussion next week with the emergency service groups is how we may wanna allocate some of that money. My recommendation is that, is gonna be to the commissioners is that, we try to keep a fund balance at around $1 million. Just because, sales tax can be a volatile, revenue source. And if we're spending $800,000-900,000 a year, that gives us, I mean, if we have a real disastrous season, we've got money in the fund to make sure that everything stays at the same level for, a year or two, or possibly even 3. So that, but again, it's up to the commissioners. They can decide how they want to spend that down. Quite honestly, if you look at the needs of emergency services, a fire truck is $500,000 plus. Ambulances we've been fortunate with, and hopefully we continue where the grant funding picks up 90% of those costs. Bunker gear, half the bunker gear was 40,000. Yeah. This year, I just committed almost 90,000 to set up a wildfire department. And the self-breathing apparatus is probably going to be the next item at a extremely substantial cost. So
Yeah, one of the things is take whatever you think you're gonna spend and add a zero when it comes to anything emergency services, fire, you think it's, something should be $800, it's probably 8,000. And that's just the way it is. I was just in a meeting with a rep and what we thought we could maybe get for 50,000 was 100,000. And it's something we're going to have to buy within the next 2 to 3 years. And it's to stay current. I guess we don't have to, but also it's not something that you really want to risk when it comes to saving lives for fire or EMS, but.
I mean, we have to have a base level of services, regardless of how small or how big we are. And I hear from the sheriff's department, from ambulance, call volume increases year over year. I think it's why we see these increase in budget requests, because just simply the utilization is going up every year. So yeah, that's helpful. Can you just for the benefit of this board or anybody listening, because I hear people ask about that fund or like, what are we doing? How do we prioritize it? What does it look like? Can you kind of articulate how that process works, kind of from the commissioner and the emergency services group level, timing wise, how that allocation works?
Yeah, and basically how it works is we start off by funding at the base, at the level that we funded the year before.
Yeah,
And then, like I say, the emergency service group, usually under Anthony's
okay,
direction, will meet and come up with their priorities. And then mid-year, if something comes up, such as wildland fire, then they can come and just present to the commissioners and put in a request.
gotcha.
And the user groups who are kind of utilizing that fund is ambulance association, fire, sheriff's department, public health, and OEM.
Mhm.
Those are kind of the five.
Search and rescue.
And sorry, and search and rescue. I just lumped it in because it's part of ambulance now, but it's not. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But those are the user groups who are coming and requesting those funds. And I think as the commissioners, we could have a discussion at the meeting, but it would be a meeting that we'd have to have all those user groups there and hear their input for how they would feel about having another process where the town was included or town board members were included in that as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I'm not trying to be, well, the town needs to be involved in anything. I'm just thinking like strategically, we're so small. We all live here. We live in this little tiny square mile, right? And we all see the needs. We see people go to the clinic, people need the ambulance. We see the Flight for Life coming. We see our fire department responding, and just thinking like, how do we work collectively to address all these priorities, right? Like we have big things coming down the pike of expenses, whether that's a building, whether that's equipment. And so just, it's good to hear like there's kind of that strategic level coming up. Because, I think if you guys have it in your brains that, okay, we have these individual requests, but we're also thinking about this in a bigger picture of how do we leverage this fund that might be building up, but we also want to keep reserves. How do we leverage it for bigger grants or bigger opportunities and not let those go by while also keeping the funds we need to like, not keep the lights on, but keep the fire trucks running and the ambulance working. So just wanting to make sure that we're as strategic as possible. If there's a way that the town supports that or helps, or that we're leveraging all of our funds to address these. That's all where it's coming from. Yeah. Not adding extra layers to an already complicated fund allocation process.
Would it be helpful to have these joint meetings to at least at a baseline, have the requests that have come to us and what's been funded?
Board, what do you guys think? Do you hear anything from the community?
Yeah. So big requests that we've had this year from the fire department. We've had, they're looking to get a wildland fire program going.
Mhm.
And so initially they're hoping to basically outfit a crew of 5 that would be able to respond to wildland fire incidents, not only within the county, but within the region, within the state, possibly even out of state. So that's a program that Clark and some others have been working on very heavily this year, and came to us with a request earlier in the year that we, support them. And then they worked on it basically all summer and then came back to us with the firm numbers and what they needed. So
Yeah.
That 50,000. Was that initial request 50,000 or was it a little more?
Initially, it ended up being
87, yeah. And we can if you guys are interested, we can get you guys all that. It's I think part of our meeting packets too, that are public.
Yeah.
Website too.
Yeah. I think that's helpful because I know I get questions, and so just helping dispel misinformation and spread accurate information is always helpful, I think, to
Sure.
help people just know what's happening. Yeah.
And then the other big thing that the fire department has, and you guys can speak more to this if I'm misrepresenting you for sure. Just their rebreathing units, the SCBAs that they have. The company that was making them has stopped making and servicing them. So they need to replace and buy all new ones. And that's one of those items that Tyler was saying that is just
Yeah.
a really expensive thing. So they're trying to, and some of the bunker gear that these guys have is out of date too. So they're trying to slowly update and
Yeah.
renew those resources so that they can stay current and active.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
And one of the other things I think that is important in this process, what we've been trying to do again recently, I think we did it before COVID, that was prior to my being in the position I'm at now, but these requests are all, we've been trying to talk these through at the Emergency Services Board. So it's the head of every one of those services. So we're all trying to work on the strategic planning together. And so the support for these asks has been unanimous as well from that board, which I think is,
Yeah.
you know, that way we all know that we are at least working in the same direction and we're
Yeah.
sort of on the same page. So, yeah. So that's also something that I feel like when you have the support of everybody in the emergency services, this is something that's necessary. I think, that makes it a lot easier to, you know, say yes to, because otherwise it is really difficult for even, you know, I don't know exactly what fire needs. I'm not a firefighter, and it's even harder for people that maybe aren't in the services. Say, well, do you really, you know, how important is it? So, getting the, you know, unanimous approval of the emergency services board, I think goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, and we all work really closely together and we're served amazingly well by these like small institutions that really provide service in this huge landscape that we cover. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's as simple as just, I mean, Tyler, you wear two hats, like hearing an update from Tyler, an emergency services board met, this was a conversation, you know, kind of like we get other committee updates. I don't know. Or if people are interested, attend the commissioners meeting and look at the packet.
But I think at least at these meetings, we could, you know, at least provide like kind of an update of
Yeah.
what's been happening and what the requests is
Yeah.
for the year. And that might be helpful.
Yeah, that's great. And to hear kind of that target of like $1 million in the fund balance, that's the target, because then that explains what any remainder gonna be. Yeah. Right, okay, thanks.
Keep going.
Still in Willie's memo.
Okay, and then, you know, the next item was search and rescue. They've actually been in what I think is really a unique and kind of a special arrangement. They've been pretty much absorbed by the Ambulance Association, and it really has, I mean, it should be the model for the state, because I think it should, you know, one thing to have search and rescue going out there and finding somebody. It's also nice when you have somebody that's out there finding somebody that can actually provide medical assistance as soon as they find them, type of thing. And I think it's just been you know, just I'm just one of those programs that I'm just totally amazed at how well it's worked out. You know, and for the most part, search and rescue doesn't receive a lot of funding. We put in $5,000 a year for the escrow fund for big ticket item. Occasionally, technically, they're still underneath the sheriff as far as statute goes, but I think we've worked out an arrangement to everyone's satisfaction and legally covered. You know, and then we have emergency preparedness or emergency managers, Jim Donovan. And he provides the emergency management for both the town and the county. And, you know, basically he paid for by the county. He gets some state grant funding to cover part of his cost between public health and emergency services. And, you know, I think we're pretty fortunate that we've got him, and I think it, you know, I mean, it just makes sense to have one person for both the town and county. The clinic, again, it's they're their own entity. They're a nonprofit organization. We provide them with the space over in the hospital building. And we basically reimburse them for their nurse over there. And as there's been funding through public health, we've been able to help them with some of their other personnel as well. So we've managed to keep that program going. Public health, if everybody's department was in as good a shape as public health was financially, we wouldn't even have to worry about budget meetings. We just give everybody what they want and go home. But that's gonna change sometime. You know, COVID got a lot of money pointed towards public health and really the realization of how underfunded public health was. And so right now, Becky is in good shape financially, but her programs are set up that, they really are, and you're aware of this.
I just submitted a grant on Friday that would pay my salary. That's how it goes. Yeah.
Grant funding for doing something, to do something, they can hire a person to do that. When they lose the grant funding, they get rid of that person. It's not, and they all absorb more tasks and we're numerous tasks, but it really is, a lot of it is based on that money primarily coming from the state. If it's there for a specific program, then hire somebody specific to do that. The hospital building itself, we put some substantial money into it a couple of years ago, restoration work on it, cleaning it up, painting it up, making it look good. We have a serious problem with our heating system.
Oh, yeah.
So we are now in the process of trying to replace that at a cost of probably $150,000 to $200,000. We're actually going in with electric heat system opposed to
That's great, yeah.
coal or propane boiler. The seniors, and this is something I know you get help out with considerably, is we do run the snow shoveling program through Area Agency on Aging, and we end up picking up whatever cost overruns there are. Last winter was a light winter, so there was actually a little extra funding in there to do some home chores in the summer. The year before, we went through a lot of money, and they gave us extra money. And we still went through county money. We also help, a couple of years ago, they had more money, and we're able to provide Carrie with some extra, or not extra, but just pay her a reasonable rate for the hours she was putting in. And when they cut that last year, we absorbed that difference of doing that this year to keep her going. Children and family learning. That was an interesting partnership. And they're celebrating, they're getting ready to celebrate their 20th anniversary, believe it or not. That just blows me away. They looked at several locations for the preschool before it was, or the learning center before it was built where it was. And essentially what we did was the people that own the Stanley Placer, which the school owns now, planning to subdivide it sometime. We went to them and, basically the town said, because as part of the subdivision, you usually have to come up with a 5% of the land or a fee in lieu of the land or whatever. And we said, if you guys would donate this land to the preschool, we'll consider this your requirement for subdivision when you get ready to subdivide. And they were all on board around that. Basically the county, the town, made the arrangement because they own, because it would have been in their subdivision. The county took the lead with the preschool board and we basically got the grant funding and we actually ended up getting a loan from Region 9 to finish off the gap funding. So basically what we do is we rent the building to the preschool, $6,000 a year, and that's what we use to make our payment to Region 9. But it's, again, that's been I think that's been a real good program. And it took some creative ideas to make it happen. The other thing that the county does is preschool is we have TANF funds, temporary assistance for needy families. And we get those through social services, and we earmarked a chunk of that to help provide services at the preschool. We also use that to help the school do their summer programs as well. Our communication liaison, the guy back there with the tie on, I mean, he performs a real critical role of keeping track of what EPA and the other federal agencies are doing, and letting them know what our concerns are, and letting us know what they're doing. And we've been real fortunate to have him as our communications liaison. And I don't know who else would even want to do it. But he's done a great job. And then, the other thing I tapped in our list, and there was just a lodging tax. We do have a lodging tax, 2% for every 2% tax on all the lodging. Prior to a year ago, it was all earmarked for marketing and promotion of San Juan County. The last election, I guess it's 2 years, 2 years ago, the last election, we put on the ballot, the state had allowed for it to be changed, approval of the local voters to change that to, instead of 100% going for marketing, a percentage could go for childcare and affordable housing, and part of it could go for enhanced visitors experience, whatever that means. And so what we put on the ballot was approved was that 40%, which will continue to be used for marketing, 40% could be used for affordable housing and child care, and 20% for enhanced visitor enhancement. And one of the places we used that money, it was this small amount, but the artwork that was done in the windows over the winter, which I thought really was a great program, and really made the downtown look better. And San Juan Development was out hitting the pavement the other day, talking to people that hadn't participated. Sounds like they have a lot of interest in more people getting there. And then, I know the preschool or the childcare is going to ask for some money out of that fund, or I think they're going to ask for some money. They kind of got hit when there was programming changes from the state as to how they funded different things. And so they took kind of a hit there. So they're probably going to ask for a little assistance there. We were actually Becky was able to help them with some of the public health money. If they did some public health stuff with the preschool, then she could throw some money their direction. So, and then we've got, some potential funding to help for, matches. Hopefully as a housing authority moves forward with some of these programs down in Anvil and adjacent properties. And just kind of a list of where we've spent the lodging tax over the last few years. A big chunk of it goes to the chamber for major marketing, but a lot of it goes to small events organizations. Gives them a few bucks for to buy ads and stuff, and it really is kind of a shot in the arm for all of them.
What was the $10,000 for Cascade Village?
I'm sorry.
$10,000 for Cascade Village?
Yeah, for marketing Cascade Village, and a little history on that. When the lodging tax was initially approved, Cascade Village was by far and away the largest contributor to the fund, and they're still a substantial contributor. But when it was first, now it's all the individuals rent their own homes. At the time, it was a development, and they marketed it as such. And none of the funding was being used to promote them. And so they got into a little bit of an argument with the county, and some attorneys got involved. And before it got too far, everybody decided, well, we'll provide you guys with some funding for promotion. So and they're happy with what we're doing. And they're trying to get things, they had come to kind of a complete stop down there as far as doing anything. And so giving them a little funding at the south end of county is getting some of their programs back up and running again. So I think it's been positive.
And the airport mural?
The what?
Airport mural?
Yeah. Several years ago, the La Plata County Airport,
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
has a mural.
Not the baggage claim.
We, at the time, the tourism board thought that was a good investment for people getting off and picking up. It was kind of a prime spot, for people picking up their luggage. It's like, yeah, there might be someplace besides Doritos.
Yeah,
And so I think it's worked, but it is.
just threw me,
Yeah.
figure out where the airport was here in town.
Gotta promote wider run. Come up the valley.
And that's why it's good to have these meetings, because, that information gets, isn't out there. If it is out there, it's, headed in the wrong direction.
We all have our massive packets and are right in it, but we don't see each other's packets in quite the same way. And then much less the community, like sorting through hundreds of pages.
The Anvil Mountain Apartments are hopefully at best a break even prospect. We've kind of taken a couple of big hits this year down there. So we're a little underwater this year.
Just with maintenance kinds of things.
Yeah. No, yeah, we've had a couple of maintenance issues. We've had
Damages.
actually, a couple of insurance. I don't know what the town's insurance has been doing, but the county's insurance has been going through the roof, including the apartments down there, and increase in water and sewer bills.
Mhm.
Which is, I know, I think that you guys
Always on our list.
are, but when you have 12 units down there and they all
Right.
take a hit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're because they are income controlled, well, 9 of the units are income controlled. Based on income, the state actually sets what those rental rates can be. And so,
And that includes utilities.
yeah, we provide the utilities, water, sewer, electric. Building inspector, code enforcement, that's your employee and he provides, service to the county. The way we've set that up, it's essentially pretty much paid for itself. All the building permit fees come to the town, regardless of if they're in the county or in the town. And then, that goes first towards the building inspector's cost. If there's any remaining costs after that, then we split those 50-50. If we exceed, if the building inspector costs you 50,000, we brought in 75,000 in revenues, then that extra funding is, we reduce our shared service costs with that, so. The sheriff, office, that's a big department, big hit on both our budgets, the way we've got it. We've had it set up for years. This is the town picks up 60% and the county picks up 40%. It is, that is a big item. And as it is, it's still understaffed.
Yeah.
We've been for years trying to get another deputy. Jail bills have actually gone down considerably from where they used to be. This year, we took a little bit of a hit. I think we're still within, we're probably going to stay within budget, unless we have some long time person that be there for the rest of the year or something. But we were notified by La Plata County that the rates are gonna go up considerably from what they have been. It's still a bargain compared to if we had to run our own facility. Possible. But we're also looking at potentially seeing if Montrose would enter into an agreement to provide jails.
I just have a question about the sheriff. I see that it's 60% is covered by the town and 40 is covered by the county. And I do understand the county pays for their health insurance. I'm just wondering how that number or that split originated. Just looking at a lot of other emergency funds, it does seem that the county and town split 50-50. So I'm just wondering where the 60-40 came from.
Basically came from the fact that the vast majority of the time and service is spent within the town. And we've had this discussion
Okay.
pretty much every budget. Yes.
Or at least every new board.
Okay.
No, and I mean, and I think it's a legitimate discussion, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just when you start looking at the time and services, they're,
Yeah.
60-40 is probably a bargain.
I think we heard from the sheriff's department last year, that's probably closer to, 75% of the calls happening in the town. And so again, we might be getting a little benefit here. I think a question I have overall with a lot of these because we're operating off of last year's budgets. And so we know inflation is a thing. And, we know that, again, we hear from these departments that call volume is going up, usage is going up. And so do we all have any sense on how much these budget requests might be going up for our next budget cycle? I mean, do you have any sense from sheriff we have fire here, we'll get their budget for 2025 soon. So just kind of thinking like, okay, guys, prepare us. What do we need to buckle up for?
So, some things we get notified of, vehicles,
Yeah.
get out of service and people need new vehicles and things like that. Staffing is something that's somewhat predictable. Some things are totally unpredictable. Like one of the biggest increases that we've had for insurance at the county is sheriff department. It's the regulations for body cams, which thankfully we were able to get grant funded.
Yeah.
And all of the lawsuits that have kind of come down through through the last few years against police departments has trickled down to every police department. And we've been fortunate, I think. We haven't been, fielding too many of those judicial actions, but it's those are ones that we don't get any notification that those are going up.
Yep.
It's like, oh, this is what you owe.
And I think there's a public education piece to this, which is it's just more expensive to do business these days. There's more regulations, there's more liability we have to pay attention to that, like, even while our revenues might be going up. And Willie, I really appreciated your inflation adjusted numbers because it helps people realize what we're actually dealing with. That even with those inflation adjusted numbers, it's just more expensive at town hall and at county courthouse to do business these days. And so that leads to some of these increases in our budgets that we can cover with revenue. But at the same time, it's just, we're all looking for the ways to provide the essential services that we have. It can be tricky.
No, insurance is just, just blindsided us the last couple of years. Budget for a big increase and then it comes in double what we were anticipating. And like Austin said, a large part of that is the law enforcement aspect. It's just, because, you belong to CIRSA, the insurance pool, we belong to CTSI, same thing, but they have that umbrella insurance company that they are policies that they have to go out and pay for. And just to find something and then that's affordable, just not there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beating us up. And then just general inflation. For years, we could kind of do our budget and the line items pretty much stayed the same. The only thing that changed would be, if personnel is going to get a 2% raise or 3% raise or whatever, that would work in. Everything else would be pretty much, things that, just the cost of every little thing has just gone up dramatically in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Just beating us.
Tyler says that is
Like
zero.
for instance, like our fuel, like I took over for Kemet has tripled.
Mhm.
And then the cost of and also we're running more calls, right? So that fuel budget includes increased runs. Disposable medical supplies, doubled during COVID and didn't come back down. And then, one of the hardest parts is for us still, it still is keeping our employees because we're still probably the lowest paid in the Four Corners. And
cost of living continues to go up
I
here.
can't afford a house here.
Yeah.
We can't pay them enough and we've lost a dozen good people in the last 10 years to Durango fire. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
it's a struggle and there's a high rate of turnover, which is never good. But at a certain point, we can only also pay what we can pay. So, but as far as like all of those disposable things, that's just been increasing and increasing and increasing.
And gone are the days where Silverton was more affordable than some of our surrounding communities. Like that's just, it changed like that. So we're all playing catch up.
And you touched on it, the sales tax. And that's kind of why I included, I know the town is extremely dependent on sales tax. It's emergency services, is our big thing in sales tax. Our general operation is not as significant as a town, but when you I think, it just, when you look at where we're going, sales tax wise, and then when you adjust it for inflation, it's not
as much as you think.
this year isn't a banner by any means. It's not bad, but it isn't a banner year. And it's kind of interesting if you look at the chart that I put together, because I've got data from 1988. And when you look at the blue line, boy, it's just going up and up. When you adjust for inflation, it was flat forever.
Mhm.
And then then it gradually started going up. And then you got to remember for the last 5 years now, we've received the remote sales tax. The Wayfair decision that said that Supreme Court decision that says we can tax people even if they don't have a physical presence in the state. And so every internet sale is being taxed. And that, I mean, that's generated, 140, 150,000 a year for the town. So it's a decent chunk of revenue, but if you subtract that from what the chart is showing, then it just shows you that things aren't quite as rosy as you'd like them to be. I mean, our best time was during the pandemic. We just we have more.
We see anything about that, we're like, yeah, yeah.
Internet, because that's not going to go away. It's not like that decision is going to be turned.
Oh, it just.
Right.
It's like
Right.
it has gone up, but it's also now going to be in perpetuity, right?
No, it's standard. And in fact, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, again, actually going back to COVID, a lot of people got used to ordering stuff online. And so, if I go down to Durango and buy something, they get my sales tax.
Yeah.
If I go online and order something,
It stays here.
you get my.
For everything online, everybody. You get to buy in town or order online.
There is a benefit to that.
Yeah, it's feeding back into that economy. I had a question, Willie, on some of these numbers, because I often hear from community members, we'd like to see the remote sales tax numbers, and I've also heard from town and county that it's a little bit tricky to tease out the vendors. Are they actually local or are they actually remote? So can you give us a little nuance behind these totals here? Your best,
What
prediction?
what I do is when I get my report from the state, they list businesses as being remote.
Yeah.
Or being local.
Yeah.
And so that's where those numbers are separated from.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of businesses that are not considered remote because they have a physical presence in the state.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, there's still a lot of businesses that aren't actually located in
Yeah, Yeah.
San Juan County or Silverton
yeah.
that is included in that amount.
So really what this would do to the number is the remote number would actually be higher than what we'd even
Yeah.
expect. Yeah. Thanks.
And surprisingly, in the county's numbers are even a larger percentage because we're smaller to start with. The remote sales in the county is actually a larger percentage than the towns. But interestingly enough, some of the larger sales taxpayers are streaming services.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Who knew?
We love our entertainment and we're on a first name basis with Reed with UPS. Oh, yes.
And then just for kicks, on the chart here actually has a dollar amount. I listed what I've titled, for lack of a better title, impacts on sales tax. The Missionary Ridge fire, the recession, the Ruby Walls rock slide, the
416 fire.
416 fire, and then when OHVs were allowed, and the COVID pandemic and ice fire. And it is kind of interesting if you take those dates and put them on the chart. They do show either, I mean, obviously the COVID showed an increase, as did the OHVs. The rest all showed a pretty good bump or dip. So,
Well, I think what strikes me, talking to business owners this summer and having times when the train couldn't run and, all of these different things, or when the power is out in the winter, like we have these vulnerabilities, right? We're so small that these shocks are felt so locally. And I was on a Colorado Tourism Office meeting today, just thinking about how do we continue to think about sustainability, resiliency, year-round economy, helping our businesses, helping diversify the things we offer, just so we can kind of continue to hit this from multiple directions. So when those shocks come, they're not affecting everybody because we're all dependent on that. So just, it's a sticky wicket to work through, but finding ways to, resiliency is the buzzword, right?
an interesting, thing is, when the Missionary, Ridge Fire happened in 2002, Forest Service came up and looked at, our public lands, and basically this was out of their mouth. It's like, you got an asbestos forest up here.
Mhm.
We don't worry about it.
Mhm.
When the 416 fire happened, they came up here and looked at stuff and shut it down immediately. I mean, they just got everybody out of the backcountry because it was just scary. And then, then we go to the ice fire and it's actually happening in their backyard.
Mhm.
So in a essentially less than a 20-year period, we went from
Don't worry.
I worry about it to
Mhm.
it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that was interesting with the Missionary Ridge Fire was that Governor Owens
Mhm.
actually got on national TV and said, the state of Colorado is on fire, don't come visit us.
Really helpful when public officials do that. Who was his PIO at the time? So that's a lot of data and information. Welcome, new trustees. Lots of tables from Willie and charts. Kind of questions about these different pieces, and or Gloria, was there anything you wanted to add to some of the data and conversation before we move into questions?
I mean, I think Lily did an awesome job explaining that, so thanks. Thanks for doing the job. I do want to respect the time of our organizations that are here if they wanted to talk about any kind of upcoming changes that you guys might have in budget. I would open that up for your opportunity now and then go back to questions if that works.
Yeah.
And I just want to throw in here before we let them start talking. The numbers, and we got, the numbers are always numbers, and we got to figure out where the money's gonna come from. But we are so fortunate with the groups that we have here, the Fire Authority, the Ambulance Association, Search and Rescue, department after the next, public health. Man, for such a small community, we have greatest group of professionals. And it hasn't always been that way. We've had ups and downs in different departments, but right now we're, it's just, it makes life a whole lot easier for everybody. I mean that sincerely.
Yeah. I think people take for granted the level of service that we get.
Yeah.
So, all right, gentlemen. Questions, comments, thoughts, additions?
Well, you're asking a question. You have a proposal 57.
Yeah.
With our having 3,000 for county, 3,000 for county. And 250 extra administration. Training's the biggest one, was about 1,500. Get certified on it. Training's about 1,500 and county, we're proposing. Travel, as always know, just fuel and stuff like that. We got 500 a piece, so we raised that by 250 a piece. And apparatus certifications, we can't hardly get people to get up here to certify our trucks, our pumps and everything. So we had 1,000 for each of them, because that was for the ladder truck. So now we have other trucks that need to be certified, so. It'll be 1,000 for each of those, so like I said, it comes up as $6,000 total, 3,000 down, 3,000 county. And then the escrow account and pension fund remained 10,000 fees and 15,000 sales tax. But that's kind of what will be closing to both entities. So appreciate it. I think the SCBA's, we're gonna be in dire needs of them just because, you know, we went to emergency service for county. It was approximately over $170,000. We, I guess the state we were rejected. Will be the emergency service board and stuff. Reached out to them to try to get back. Our biggest thing is we reached out to Alpamara to try to get funding for SCAT type 6 truck for the wildland company, and we won't go on that till the end of the month. That's our biggest things that we have coming up. If anybody has any questions, got to answer them.
Thank you.
I should have pointed out earlier, we've talked about the wildfire, you know, thing, or department that they're trying to establish. What you guys will actually see when we establish the authority as their own entity, that wasn't a defined part of their mission. So we have to amend their service agreement and their, and so that'll actually be coming back to the town for review and approval. The county attorney and fire authority are working on that right now, so hopefully not.
They've been
not
in contact with the town attorney.
What's that?
They've been.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They have been
They've
talking
been.
to
Clark's time for him, and he's heading it up, and he's worked with Jim Donovan on that, and we're hoping to, you know, do some work with BLM and Forest Service to do some county and city-wide mitigation. Yeah, and the Forest Service would pay guys to do that mitigation. Employ a few people until we're open. We get a full crew. We already have enough personnel, but we get all the equipment and stuff by next season. We can actually deploy people to go out on these and start raising revenues to help cover the expenses on the wildland side.
Right. I had one question, Gloria, from your memo. You have the Fire and Rescue Authority and all the service items, and it says Fire Protection County line item 20,000, and that's split 50-50 with the town and county. But it's not quite reflected in the budget that we typically get from the fire department. So just curious what that 20,000 is, different than the pension and the building. Okay.
That goes into the.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
I think.
Might label that better in the future, but we have labels, you know, that we use for years, and then we realize those labels aren't. We're reflective of what we're actually doing. Yeah, that would make sense that it was the pension, but I didn't have it actually written down as the pension.
Escrow.
Or as the escrow, yeah.
It would either be, I mean, either the pension or the escrow, but I think the escrow is 20,000.
Yeah, split.
And
Yeah.
and then you ask for addition, and sometimes you get it.
Or something. It would be at
Yeah.
It comes from that pot of money on the county side. Yeah,
20,000, 10,000 from each.
yeah,
County.
Yeah.
Escrow.
yeah.
We'll just label that better in the future, in our next IGA.
Thank you. Questions on fire for chief?
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. Come on up. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, Austin, the last meeting you were thumbing through our, spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And mentioned how much a shirt costs and those kind of things. And 5 years ago, I mean, that's 30-40% difference.
Yeah.
So we're running the same things because they didn't manufacture them. Went through the COVID issue like everybody else, so that's when it's unavailable or double the price, so. We just have the same kind of issues that Hallie was speaking to.
Thank you.
Spark.
Jim, did you want to come up at all or?
Sure, yeah.
I know that the trustees now have had lots of time with you, so.
Great. It was great to see in the memo, I have real easy requests, just $0. But there are some, since OEM is under the county, so they will be working on county budget, so I'm just absorbed in the county, but within the next 5 years, here are just the requests I have. And the number one big request is an emergency operations center. So that would be co-located. I've talked with Tyler about this, a co-located facility whenever we're able to essentially get a new EMS SAR station built. And emergency operations center is essentially a large room where we can in personnel when we need essentially troops to help us manage really big disasters. We've had to do this during the 416 and the ice fire, where we bring in extra personnel to help us manage the worst of the worst. This will happen again, and we just need to be prepared for it. Ice fire was a great example. We have actually very few facilities where we could space people out enough to meet the requirements. And ice fire was a unique time where there was really kind of no town administrator currently in charge.
That's great fun, right, Jim?
So kind of had to find keys and stuff, and I had to kind of take over the town hall here. But we were able to essentially stage this as the EOC. So that's what, that'd be a very important facility. It also needs to essentially be a hardened facility that could essentially handle a disaster like a large wildfire. It's kind of one of the last buildings standing in a town. Along with fire station and EMS station. So
Clinic. Many needs for this building.
yeah, so that's, there's grants, a lot of grants for that, but matching is always really important. So that's the real big request that's coming in the pipeline. And then also just to emphasize, along with what fire department has been working on the response side, we've already been working on the wildfire mitigation side of really developing kind of the preparedness and mitigation side of preventing the wildfires. So really getting the community engagement, identifying locations within our town and county of saying, okay, we have to prevent these wildfires from happening, but also helping identify areas to help once the team gets established, give them jobs to do in the summer of like, okay, let's kind of cut these areas down. So if a wildfire does happen, it at least slows the progress of getting into town. So we've already made great progress with that. We've established the wildfire council, like I talked with you all earlier in the summer, and have good motivation with that crew. So I'll come back and report on that. The other one is we do actually need a 4-wheel drive vehicle for OEM, so we can go around and just check things out in the county. So we currently just drive around in our personal vehicles, and it's a bit of a pain, but when things like the little storm that happened, it'd be great just to have a vehicle. So that's a very important.
Maybe we could share that with the building and code officer needs a.
It's all about,
Yeah.
co-location, share the vehicles. It could even be used by public health to drop some food off, whatever we need. As long as it's 4-wheel drive. So, going from big to small. And that's all I got.
Thanks.
Any questions? All right, thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Just to let you know, we did build a clinic in the last ambulance station.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I say it tongue in cheek, but I do think back to my kind of mention about being strategic, right? Like there will be, from a public health perspective, there will be a limited time that we're able to operate the clinics we do have in our current Miners Hospital. And so I think just being forward thinking, I think as we have times where the ambulance can't run and Flight for Life can't come and people realize it gets really real about what services we do and don't have here, our ability to recruit a doctor in town more often, or urgent care and someone who could do stitches and really provide, I think, more services that we're often looking for, it will come to a point where it's limited by the facilities we have. For what we're able to offer and bill insurance and by we, I mean, the community as a whole, not public health in particular, but our ability to really recruit and retain providers or clinics is going to be tricky in our current situation. So that's why I just talk about being strategic. If we all have a need for a building, let's do it in phases or think bigger. Let's cast the vision bigger. And I always take a cue from Kim White. I think she did this so amazingly when the school needed to fix the asbestos, become ADA compliant and deal with a couple other things. She didn't say, okay, we're just going to deal with that. And that's a $2 million project. She said, no, we're going to dream bigger. And I think our community has a great history of kind of dreaming big for things that we need. And we can see that in even passing the emergency services tax and just our ability to kind of find the things that we need to serve everybody here. So that's my pitch for being strategic.
I mean, do you have Anthony here? And I think I can contact with you, but I had to come up or not.
I don't know what you want me to speak about. I mean, I can talk to you about how, the emergency services come together. In fact, we're gonna have a work session actually next week in the afternoon with the commissioners, support each other on those needs and bring those over to the commissioners and Willie. And it's a process we put in place, I guess probably, I don't know how many years ago, 8 years ago, and it works well. I don't know, we've talked at times, is there you've mentioned, potentially, does the town have a place? I think, you always want to try to streamline your processes. Everybody, I think here goes to more meetings than they necessarily want to. I think those things can be talked about internally inside the organizations. We're talking about how we're doing things that may be different right now as well. So that may come up. I don't know that you want to talk about the super fund. I will say,
And say, how much do you guys get to hear from him about the super fund? We hear from him a lot.
Do excellent report backs.
I will say, just to understand that everybody is working together in different ways. One of the things I'm working with my department as well as Jim right now and the county. We're talking about reuse and reuse in that Howardsville, the Eureka stretch, looking at water storage, but also as it applies maybe to our conversation this evening, for potential reuse in the area for like small lakes. I'm not talking about big, I say that, but fire suppression, if we, unfortunately, bridge where helicopters can come in and be able to pull water where it's not ready to, and up that way as well. So, those are the kind of things we're working on as well on the Superfund side that the county's having me work on with the emergency services. Questions? Lori?
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler, you can put on your other hat if you'd like. Did you want to add anything here?
Yeah, we're, our biggest priority for the last several years has been trying to get a new building. I should say, I guess that's not the highest priority, but it was one of our biggest goals. But our biggest actual priority is retention of employees. Again, Durango has stolen at least a dozen of our best people in the last 10 years. Good for them, fair play. But we're losing a few more to them again, and every time we have to hire new people, we have to go through a training, and we, you know, typically costs a lot more money to get somebody trained up. So that's sort of just a constant battle. So we're trying to come up with creative ways that we can keep people here. Again, that comes back to affordable housing, affordable attainable housing, which is a much bigger conversation. But yeah, that's the biggest struggle that the ambulance has. And we just got a survey of, you know, paramedic pay across the state, and we're at the bottom of the barrel. And we also ask our people to not only be a paramedic, but be a mountain rescue provider. And so unless they just really love doing it, they're probably not going to come here to work. So just something, it's something we've been working on for 3 years. I thought that when I took the job from Kimmett, the first thing I said to the board was the number one goal is recruitment and retention. And I think when it actually comes to looking at the turnover we've had, I've absolutely failed at that. So it's pretty frustrating, but again, there's only so much you can do. We can't buy them a house. And then we are working on getting a new building. We've been working with Jim on trying to integrate that OEM office. And only recently has Becky approached us about maybe putting a conjoined clinic in it. Again, that's a much larger conversation. But then just a few smaller points. Willie talked about, you know, we've been able to been very successful at getting a lot of state grants for ambulances. You know, we have our newest ambulance is a $250,000 ambulance, and the town and county paid $25,000 for that. The bad news is that those state grants, the CDPHE grant, which is the main grant that all of our big purchases over the last 10, 15 years, we go to them. That grant every year has been getting, the amount of monies available have been getting smaller and smaller. So this year there were $11 million worth of asks from emergency services in the state of Colorado, and the pot had $4 million in it. So we didn't even ask for anything this year. Luckily, we got our ambulances are mostly up to date. And after looking at what our other agencies in our RETAC, which is the Regional Emergency Trauma and Trauma Commission, looking at their needs and what we needed, we decided that we weren't going to ask for anything. We were going to support our neighbors. And then hopefully when we do ask for something, we're going to get that support in return. But that's just something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, is that the state grants, the pool for state grants has been getting smaller and smaller. Luckily, we have been able to get a new billing company and our collections have gone up. But again, that can be really difficult in any healthcare in the United States, and EMS is, you know, historically bad at being able to, you know, get people to pay. And then, you know, donations are another part of it, but we don't budget donations. So, yeah, but we're going to be, you know, continually trying to keep people there, because a new building won't do us any good if we don't have anybody to staff in it. But yeah, we're putting together our budget for 2025. Right now, we just got out of obviously the busiest time of the year for us, and I'll be taking that in front of our board either this month or the beginning of next month. And after we have that budget set, if you all would like to see it, we'd be happy to share it with the town and county.
That'd be great. I mean, a question I have is just, is what you're currently doing sustainable, right? Like if we see call volume continue to go up, if you see expenses, if you see you're losing people, at what point does something give? You know, and kind of on the housing side, obviously we can't buy people houses, but we talked a while back in our housing authority meeting, right? We're trying to create incentives and structures so that essential workers and certain folks can get higher priority for some of the housing that might be built. So that's one thing that the town can work on. But like, at what point is your emergency service is an emergency that you can't literally
Well,
staff.
we are in much better shape than we were before the sales tax was pushed or voted through. Again, I was just sort of, peripheral to this back then, but I do know that it was scarier then. I do think if we are getting to that point where it's becoming an emergency, you're going to hear me, I'm going to be screaming every meeting we have. And it could be something that this is just, maybe we are just a stepping stone for providers in other places. We get people right out of paramedic school. They come and work with us for a few years, then they leave, and we might just be, that may just be our MO. It's not ideal, especially in emergency services. You don't want brand new people showing up to your house when you're having a heart attack, but also you get what you pay for. So, but yeah, no, right now we're working on 2025, and we'll let everybody know if it's really becoming a problem.
If we start to hear Tyler screaming, we'll know why. Yeah, I think so. I think those are all of our service providers. Thank you guys for being here. I want to make sure, commissioners, if you have any questions, trustees, more questions, and I know, Scott, you're online there, but I don't want to leave you out if you are wanting to jump in here at all with questions, clarification, or wisdom. Oh,
You're on mute, Scott.
I'm doing good right now, so far.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, questions from the trustees. We've gone through a lot of budget numbers, talked a lot about shared services, heard from our service providers. Questions?
No question, just thank you for explaining all of this and giving us the numbers. It's really helpful for.
No, and I just would invite any of you.
Yeah.
If you have any questions on any of this stuff. Office, so
Thank you.
I'll give you more history than you want to know on it.
Willie will know all the details.
When I was first on the board for Town of Trustees, I didn't understand anything about budgeting. And I think I learned more from Willie than anybody when I went by his office and said, can you please explain some of this stuff to me? Because I really don't understand it. He spent a good hour, I think, going through a lot of the shared services and the agreements and the numbers and the history. And really taught me a lot.
I think just for the new board, and then, you're not a super new commission board lately, but just beyond shared services, any ways we can continue to work better. I think it's really great to have these joint meetings. And obviously we had one at Kendall a while back, and that was really helpful. So we can all avoid getting ourselves into media trouble. But yeah, any other kind of questions, thoughts, comments from anybody here on how to just continue to work better? Again, we're all so small. We all live right together. We have a lot of overlap in the things that we do and care about. So any thoughts, comments, ways to improve?
This is for Willie. Thanks for explaining things to me. I had a lot of questions and I was real curious about the airport mural.
I had a few things that you guys might get fielded questions about that you might want some updates on that we've been working on.
Prepare us, yeah.
First of all, the biggest one is probably road and bridge stuff. So we have a new road and bridge department. We've had a lot of action out in the county lately. We had 43 mudslides that hit the county roads in the last month. And a lot of plug culverts, which we'll be replacing. And the road and bridge department's going to be trying to do a lot of road maintenance stuff. A lot of the culverts are 50 years old and in September. So there might be some delays on county roads. They're going to try and keep it to a minimum. The one that they have a lot of problems with is there's now a new slide that runs pretty much every time it rains now by the Mayflower. And when they close that lower river road, because they're working on it, they've had pedestrians, motorcycles, and folks like trying to go through that road closure. And they have to move material down off of the upper road to the lower road and they actually, one of the mudslides blocked the entire river flow for a few hours, which was pretty crazy. Pete has been working really hard on getting us this material called Earthbind to try and use for dust control on County Road 2.
What was that called?
Earthbind. They're gonna do a test patch on Monday. He just told me just before this meeting. So we're gonna try that out. It should be a fraction of the cost of mag chloride. It might be something that the town might be interested in using too, if it's successful in the county too, because it's so much cheaper than mag chloride and doesn't have some of the environmental concerns.
What is it? Like, what's it?
I can give you a spec sheet, but I'm not a scientist. It's what it's, okay, so what it is I went to Don Mendez, over in, Lake City, and it's what they use on County Road 30 by Lake Cristobal. If anybody has been there, but you all have, and it's dust free. It's a good tackifier, and it's what they use there. And it's the guy's name is Sam, who's the rep. He used to work for Mag Chloride. Now he works for these guys, in Byra Road, and it's called Earthbind. And I just went and picked it up in Junction today. We're gonna start using it in the water trucks starting Monday with their tutelage. And test it out, and if it works as good as it does on County Road 30, then we'll talk about budgeting for it for next year.
Also, isn't it substantially cheaper?
Like a third.
Yeah.
So it's,
Of that.
It would just let you guys know, it would cost 80 to 100,000 to mag chloride. County Road 2 now.
Yeah.
Those costs have gone up amazingly. So since I'm talking, we also working real hard to get a new piece of equipment for the county. We're getting I think we're getting a nice new zero swing excavator that'll fit up all the mountain roads and has a blade and a thumb. They'll be able to replace culverts more like, we were using a dozer. Those guys can be talented. They can do it with a dozer, but we can do, 5, 6, 7 a day with an excavator. And a lot more versatile machine that can go anywhere. So.
A couple other things, the County Road and Bridge in July got the parking lot done for Baker's Park. Those guys have been working hard up in Baker's Park to try and finish the loop. It's gonna be, I think it's like 8.5 miles. So hopefully that'll be done this fall. We did apply for Senate direct funding, and it was not successful. So
For Baker's.
for Baker's Park. So that wasn't successful. So back to
So
the
keep
drawing board.
throwing darts.
Co and CW again. So yeah, I know that Clement and Lisa are applying for another GoCo grant this fall. So if anybody asks about that, and hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll have one, that lower loop completed to be able to go and enjoy.
Big asset.
ELM has done a ton more designated camping this year, so they're trying to move towards taking people in more designated areas to kind of reduce some of the damages. In other areas of the county, the Forest Service is kind of going through that too, but they have a new ranger, Nick Glidden, who is kind of just getting his feet underneath him still. I'm not sure, they're not sure exactly what they're going to do about ice lakes, but they may do some kind of trial permitting process in the next 2 years. So, trying to remember, I just have a whole bunch of notes here of stuff that we have gone through, but I'm not sure how much of it you guys really want to hear about. One of the things that kind of affects us as the county is you guys are really dependent on sales tax. We're really dependent on the property taxes, and we have all these kind of state bills that come through that really make us bite our nails at the last minute around election time before this all goes on. And La Plata was talking to one of the commissioners down there. They're facing like a $4 million shortfall because of these ballot initiatives.
They're gonna withdraw the ballot initiatives now after this special session. So.
Yeah, and stuff that's passed. So, yeah.
I just thought of something.
Yeah.
It doesn't directly involve the town, but does potentially affect emergency services. we had a property owner, in the county that had, done remediation work on his property. He had his, property, vandalized, and the gates were, locked, or the portal to his, the locks have been cut, that type of stuff. There was actually a person that posted on Facebook, come up to Silverton, explore the mines, bring your grinder with you.
Yeah, bring your angle grinder and some,
I didn't see.
And so, the state has had a program over the last several years of securing all these mine openings for safety reasons. And most of them, a lot of them are on private property. So when you're doing that, you're trespassing. And it's, it's kind of like, everywhere you go, you'll see the gates, the locks or the doors, locks are cut on them and they're open, and it's what we talked about, we did discuss it quite a bit at our last meeting, is, actually do some sort of social media campaign out there to make people aware of the dangers. It is private property, and then, on a remediated site, not only were they cutting the locks, but they're slashing the sandbags that diverted the water from going over the, it was just.
Yeah, and also per liability, if somebody did get hurt or trapped in an attic or a mine shaft, we can't go help them. So we can call the nearest mine rescue team, which I believe is.
Yeah.
Jim, is it in Rifle or so? Yeah, so that might, that might help persuade some people. There is no emergency services for people that get hurt in mine shafts or at it. There is, but it's however many hours. But we, because of our insurance and training and liability, we're not permitted to go in.
I think it kind of brings up this larger thing. Again, I referred to the Colorado Tourism Office meeting that we were in, but really thinking about educating our visitors, right? Like, obviously we have our local component, but helping our visitors just be great, better visitors. And, some of it, I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt and say they just don't know. Some of them maybe do, but finding ways that we can have better information out there, social media campaigns, everything from leave no trace to like, don't go getting yourself stuck in somebody's mind, right? And I think people, we're seeing more and more visitors, and we need a better job of kind of helping to educate them. So the chamber is getting some funding from Colorado Tourism Office to really actually kind of beef up that education campaign. So let's have consistent messaging. Let's have even deploying it to restaurants and people that interface with our visitors, right? So we have consistent messaging when people have questions about trails and backcountry and mines and all the heritage, that it gets communicated in a way that is consistent and keeping everybody
More
safer.
Yeah. Those influencers, like
find those
the side-by-side influencers, like,
Yeah.
people listen to other people on social media, Yeah.
Getting and having common messages. Yeah, Scott, go ahead.
Not only we're seeing the locks being broken off, people are actually fastening to the gates themselves and ripping them off. They're cutting the hinges on them. What they don't realize, they're getting their own personal gain from getting underground and seeing that, but they're exposing the public to those dangers that they were being fenced out of. We're also kind of talking with the state and Fed as if state funds or federal funds were used in some of these closures, it becomes a state or federal offense to be breaking into some of these places, because it's not just a simple trespassing. We'd like to see it breaking of state and federal regulations, which would hopefully carry more penalties, because this has become it's pretty big. Everywhere you go now, some of this stuff has been destroyed.
Yeah. Well, and again, it goes back to staffing and how you enforce it and our backcountry rangers. And it's just, we need.
Absolutely. They don't have the staffing. We don't have the staffing.
Yeah.
You can't watch everywhere. And we are pushing the Forest Service to do a registration system on Ice Lake. It's the amount of people that are on Ice Lake, 400 on 4th of July this year. last year was 400 people and 200 dogs. You know, we need a registration system, and it's getting to that point where we may have to do it in other areas too, especially the Weminuche Wilderness and stuff. They're just people everywhere, and we have been pushing the Forest Service for several years, but because of turnover or inability to hire a ranger or something like that, we're just kind of starting on ground zero again as far as that ask.
Yeah. We had a bunch of visitors this summer and several family members that love to go in the backcountry in their Jeeps and their Razors. And we had a lot of conversations with them about like, look, these are public lands, but you have 700, maybe 800 people paying for the road and bridge crew, paying for the water and sewer, paying for all the services that we need, paying for emergency services. And yes, we have some options to collect tax revenues from some of our visitors to help offset some of those costs. But really, you have a small group of payers that are creating the access to that. And it was really interesting with the family members, just kind of the eye-openingness of that. And, this user group that I was connected to was very open to helping to share the cost. So if there's any creative strategies, maybe it's mobile phone apps where people pay a fee or whatever we can do with Tabor. It was interesting to do a very small focus group with my family that when they realized the dynamic of the number of people that we're hosting in our community and the number of people that have to pay for those services, I think there's a lot of people who want to use these assets and also would be willing to help share that cost in some way. So if you guys come up with any creative pots of money, let me know.
It's also a conversation that we'd repeatedly have with the partners at the state and federal level too, that this county is 88% federal land.
Yeah.
And that the federal government does not provide any services to the visitors who come to visit federal lands.
Yeah. Yeah. We're hosting them.
Yeah, and
800 of us.
it's not just,
A little bit, we get PILT money and we get some,
Yeah.
a little bit of money.
It's
from
not that much.
But
it's also not just money. I mean, we need people.
yeah, and that's
And-
enforcement's a huge.
And not just enforcement, but again, EMS, fire, we have to take care of however many tens of thousands of people
Yeah.
visit here every year, and there's 800 people that we build our team out of,
Right?
Yeah.
which is insane. It's like a national park except without any national park.
Infrastructure. Yeah. I mean, again, when I shared this with our family members and friends, it was just mind-boggling to them. And so
There's wild examples for the resources, too, like one that we've brought up that really blows people's minds sometimes is autopsy. So if you decease or pass away on federal property, the county is responsible for paying for the autopsy and the costs that are associated with them, and they're not small. And it's like, and people from the state search and rescue funds and places like that, or in the BLM, the Forest Service are like,
yeah,
really? Like it's yeah.
Yeah.
It's just those are the kinds of disproportionate
yeah.
Things that we just deal with regularly.
I'd like to see federal monies that are provided and even state monies are provided based on the entire population, not just your voting population, whatever figure they use, but how many people are in the backcountry and in your town at one time. If you really look how many people are in town and the county, it's probably a couple thousand or more at one time, and that's what those federal monies should be based on, is thousands, not hundreds of people.
Yeah, thanks for that, Scott. Yeah. And again, I keep talking about this tourism office, but we will be able to get some cell phone data that will really be, I mean, again, guys, they're tracking us all the time. But get some more accurate actual data of where are people coming from, who is here, what are the numbers? Because again, I think the disconnect between our little hamlet playing host to the number of people that are here. And so as we have more data, we're able to tell that story, I think, a little bit better to advocate for ourselves. So. Yeah, keep going.
And the one other thing that we should probably share with you guys, I don't know if we've officially told you guys or if you guys have heard stuff, but we're in talks with the Sunnyside right now, folks to acquire 1,100 acres of their property, which would be a really historic thing for the county. And when it happens, you guys will all be invited and we're gonna go and we're gonna celebrate a little bit on one of those tables up there.
Somewhere.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what kind of ribbon cutting we can do there, but a lot of the land is, really high alpine land. We don't have any firm uses for it, but we do feel that it has a lot of public benefit for the folks at San Juan County to own it. And I think, there's certain things that we've talked about, like we've talked about like microgrid solar systems. Those tailing ponds up there have some of the highest solar access in the whole county, especially on the valley floor for us. Some of these areas potentially we could trade in the future to BLM or Forest Service for stuff closer to the valley floor, closer to town that could be used for affordable housing or EMS service stations and things like that. So just if you guys have, ideas as they come along, it's public land and it's about to be our taxpayers' public land, hopefully. So, yeah, it'll be a big deal when and if it happens. It feels like it's coming close, but I think we're only like to the point of pushing it back like 30 days instead of years now.
Good. Yeah. Call it the glacial pace of government.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
No, actually, it's not our pace, it's their pace. We move pretty quick.
We're nimble. Yeah. Helpful questions on those updates. I had one but from a town perspective, obviously, because it affects all of you who live in town. And I think just utilizing brains like yours who review a lot of land use applications and know how these things work is just really putting a plug out there for taking a look at the land use code. The drafts are out, the document's there. I had a lovely Sunday going through it and picking out the sections that I felt were really important and had a good conversation with Lucy. But this is an appeal also to my fellow board members. The timeline is ticking to get this approved. And so just if you have things you care about in the code, again, I speak to you as just super engaged community members and leaders. And having lived in this community and seen land use applications and kind of able to think through the implications is just getting people's eyeballs on it, right? Because we want a process, we want a product that is kind of the best it can be. And we also have a timeline to complete it in. So any of you in the audience, anybody listening, everybody at this table, take a look. Again, you don't have to read all 200 pages, but there are sections when you look at, well, what does this mean for use, right? What kinds of things are allowed? What does the map look like? Like pick out the stuff that you think is particularly relevant and you care about. And Lucy's great to have conversations with. There's a short survey you can fill out, but please read it because now is the time. So that's my plug for the land use code. And I hope you guys all are planning on coming to the 150th anniversary and riding the mechanical bull. It's obligatory if you're a public official. I'm just kidding. But yeah.
EMS don't support their riding of
I'm still angling for like a fundraiser for Pie the trustees or the mayor.
Is EMS bringing a trampoline then?
Yes.
Or you're just gonna bring seat collars?
Yes. Hopefully just wanted to personally extend the invitation there. So those are the two pieces I had. Take a look at the land use code. We would love your insight. And hope you can make it to the 150th. And there's a lot of things happening to celebrate our heritage, right? I know the Silverton Historic Society, partnering with Creative District and the school, has an event this weekend. So it's just a great time, I think, to get connected and stay connected. That's my shameless plug. Anybody else?
Yeah, the Historical Society is celebrating their 60th.
Yeah.
This Saturday.
Yeah.
It's a good excuse to go through the museum.
Yes. Well, and that was the other thing I was going to say. Again, I'm going to say this. I've had so many visitors. I've been to the mine and the mill and the museum twice in the last 6 weeks. My dad worked at a mill very similar at Climax. And so he just goes gaga. And he'll give you the very long tour. I prefer my husband's abbreviated tour. It's much easier to digest. But just encouraging all of us, I know when you have visitors, you might go up there, but we have these amazing assets in our community. If you haven't been to the museum lately, they're always adding new exhibits, changing things. I think we should do a little trustee retreat there. Maybe our next town and county meeting should be in the museum, but just really respecting those in the jail. The rock room. Yeah, in the rock room. Yeah. Yeah, really work. So just call out to those special assets we don't always get to use.
I think just you guys have probably discussed a little bit for planning commission, but planning commission, we had discussion about just the land use code that, you know, while there is a deadline and it's really important to get things down on paper. It's also a process that you guys have worked really hard to do and like we owe it to ourselves to get it right too, and to spend the time to have a proper review of it too.
Yeah, we'll start now. It's September. Start now, everybody. This is your time.
And if you need to catch up, we have 4 great learning sessions on YouTube that kind of walks you through our land use and best practices and what we're proposing in the land use code. So if you're not a reader, you can watch it as well. And we're also coming out with a podcast. So all Ryan, everyone.
Yeah.
Together, yes.
And again, there are budget implications to extending the timeline. So this has been a long time coming, but now is a great time to get involved. And like I said, a Sunday afternoon is not my first choice of things to do, but it was time. And so spend a couple hours, have a good cup of tea or coffee. And I think we're getting really close and there's just some things we can work on the margins. So love everybody there. Engage. All right. Anything else? Questions or staff, Scott? Audience members?
Doing good.
Great. Well, and I realize I never did roll call, but all commissioners and all trustees are present. And the time is 6:52 and we'll adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.